Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. Not because, some blaring alarm forced your eyes open and flooded your system with cortisol before your feet even hit the floor.
Right, which is how most of us start the day.
Exactly. And not
Right.
because there's a manager or like a client or a board of directors expecting you to be perfectly responsive by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And definitely not because there's this heavy psychological weight pressing on your chest, just
Yeah.
reminding you of the mortgage, the car payment, the bills waiting to be cleared.
Just that low-level hum of anxiety.
Totally.
Right.
I want you to imagine waking up simply because you, biologically and consciously, genuinely choose to. You're completely rested. The day is entirely yours, like a blank canvas.
It's a nice thought.
It is,
Uh,
but here is the truly paradigm-shifting part. Imagine a reality where you're actually earning money while you're sleeping, where the hours you spend dreaming are just as financially productive as the hours you spend awake. In this reality, you only work on problems that you genuinely deeply love solving. You never have to, contort yourself to seek out anyone else's approval.
I mean, it's a stunning visual, but for most people listening right now, their brain is almost certainly deploying defense mechanisms against it.
Oh, for sure.
The immediate reflexive thought is that this scenario is just a fairy tale. We're so conditioned to view that level of absolute sovereignty as this utopian dream reserved exclusively for, the hyper-privileged.
Like the lottery winners or the trust fund kids.
Exactly, or the ruthless titans of industry who sacrifice their souls to get there. But what if that cynicism is just a byproduct of terrible societal programming?
Yeah.
What if that level of absolute uncompromising freedom is not some crazy anomaly, but the natural, highly predictable outcome of simply understanding the underlying physics of how wealth actually functions today?
And that is exactly the precipice we are standing on today. The source material we're unpacking for this day dive is the Almanack of Naval Ravikant.
Wow.
Now, for an audience that follows, the intersections of technology, investing, modern philosophy, naval is a pretty familiar name.
He is, yeah.
But we are looking way past the surface level Silicon Valley mythology today. We're looking at a man who started with nothing, who wasn't handed the keys to any kingdom, and who methodically reverse-engineered a philosophy of life and business that has become, honestly, a foundational text for a massive wave of independent thinkers.
It really is a blueprint.
It's a blueprint that promises wealth, yes, but more importantly, it promises peace.
And our mission today is to completely deconstruct that blueprint. We need to look under the hood of these concepts because Naval starts with a premise that immediately challenges you as a listener.
Right.
He argues that the vast majority of people do not actually have a money problem, they have a thinking problem.
A thinking problem. Let's really lean into that.
Yeah, because the very architecture of how we conceptualize our time, our value, our definition of success, it's fundamentally broken. It's like a bug in the operating system of society.
A massive bug.
And we are going to isolate that bug today, understand why it was programmed into us in the first place, and explore the mechanics of how to write new code for your life. By the time we finish this analysis, the way you view your career, your daily routine, your bank account, it's going to be radically altered.
I love that phrase, a thinking problem.
Yeah.
It really strikes at the core of this. When you look at how the average person approaches the concept of success, it looks incredibly similar to a person running on a treadmill.
The treadmill analogy is so perfect for this.
Right. You step onto the machine, you select your career path, and you start running. And the logic we're handed is entirely linear. Like if you
Yeah.
want more money, you just have to increase the speed in the incline.
You just work harder.
Exactly. You sweat more, you sacrifice your weekends, you optimize your morning routine, you answer emails at midnight.
Right, the endless hustle.
Yeah, you run faster and faster, but at the end of the day, you are still bolted to the exact same piece of machinery in the exact same spot.
You haven't actually gone anywhere.
Exactly. And from what we've gathered in the source text, Naval's philosophy has absolutely nothing to do with buying you better running shoes or teaching you how to sprint more efficiently.
No, not at all.
His entire framework is about recognizing the treadmill for what it is, stepping off it completely, and using your time to build an independent machine that runs itself while you go take a nap in the sun.
Right. But before you can build that autonomous machine, you have to undergo a fairly painful process of unlearning.
Yeah, it's tough.
because the infrastructure of our entire lives is built on a specific narrative. And to understand Naval's framework, you basically have to systematically dismantle the most pervasive, universally accepted lie we've been told about survival and success since we were sitting in, like, elementary school classrooms.
You're talking about the traditional 40-year plan.
Yes. Let's really put the 40-year plan under microscope because it is the default operating system for almost every industrialized society on Earth.
The default script.
Right. The script is highly standardized. You sit quietly at a desk as a child, you memorize the curriculum, you get good grades to signal your compliance, and your intelligence.
Check, check, check.
Exactly. You use those grades to secure a stable position in a reputable company. You put your head down, you trade your hours for a steady paycheck for 4 decades.
And then, maybe if the stock market doesn't completely crash and inflation doesn't eat all your savings, you're permitted to retire and enjoy the physical decline of your final years.
When you lay it out like that, it sounds incredibly bleak.
It sounds awful, yet it's a script that most of us desperately cling to because it offers the illusion of safety.
Well, we're biologically wired to crave certainty.
Right, and a bi-weekly paycheck feels like certainty,
Yeah.
even if it is just a slow drip. But the source material points out a massive, undeniable flaw in the math of this plan.
The flaw is literally hidden in plain sight. We are taught that hard work is the primary engine of wealth. But if sheer brute force hard work, if simply putting your head down and grinding on that treadmill created financial freedom, then the demographics of wealth would look entirely different.
Everyone would be rich.
Every single hard-working employee on the planet would be incredibly wealthy.
Yeah, like the line cook working consecutive double shifts in a sweltering kitchen.
Or the roofer carrying shingles up a ladder in the summer heat.
Right, or even the middle manager drowning in 80-hour weeks just to keep some massive corporate division afloat.
These people are working incredibly hard. They're exhausted, but they are not millionaires.
Which forces a really uncomfortable reckoning for you as the listener. If back-breaking effort and long hours do not correlate to massive wealth, what is the missing variable? Are all these people just running in the wrong direction?
Basically, yes. They are participating in the wrong economic category. They're optimizing for the wrong metric.
Okay, unpack that.
The missing variable is the fundamental structural distinction between income and wealth. The 40-year plan is entirely designed to optimize your income.
Right.
Income is a direct one-to-one transaction. You lease your time and your skills to an employer, and they compensate you with a paycheck.
It's a trade.
It is, and it's a necessary mechanism for survival, obviously. But the fatal, inescapable vulnerability of income is that it ceases to exist the absolute millisecond you start producing.
It is entirely dependent on your active participation. Like if you get the flu for 2 weeks, or if you want to travel the world for a year, or if you just burn out and cannot look at a computer screen for another minute, the faucet turns off.
It goes to zero.
Right. Income can pay your current electric bill, but it keeps a leash around your neck. It keeps you on the treadmill.
And wealth operates on an entirely different plane of physics. Wealth is not a paycheck. Wealth is the machine you build.
The machine.
Yes. Wealth consists of assets that generate value independently of your daily physical effort. It's the software program executing operations, the business functioning with its own management team, the real estate collecting rent, the investments compounding in the market.
It doesn't sleep.
Exactly. Wealth doesn't care if you're asleep, if you're on vacation, or if you're reading a book. It works continuously.
Naval crystallizes this with a rule that serves as a massive paradigm shift. He says, don't chase money, build wealth.
That's the core tenet right there.
And for a listener accustomed to using those words interchangeably, we really need to draw a hard line here. Money is simply the abstract medium we use to transfer wealth.
It's just a tool.
Exactly. Money is transient. It's a piece of paper or a digital zero that we use to buy a cup of coffee or some shoes. But wealth is the underlying engine that creates the money in the first place.
If we follow that logic to its conclusion, it reveals what people are actually searching for when they say they want to be rich. Nobody intrinsically desires massive stacks of printed paper with portraits of deceased politicians on them.
No, that's fair.
What they desire is the optionality that those resources provide. They want autonomy. They want sovereignty over their own time.
Right. You use your income to survive the present moment, but you use wealth to buy back your future. The ultimate goal of wealth is freedom.
But the moment you start discussing the mechanics of building profound autonomous wealth, you immediately run into a psychological defense mechanism from society.
Oh, absolutely.
You hit a wall of deep-seated cynicism. People immediately default to the narrative of luck.
Oh, they just got lucky.
Right, sure, that sounds amazing in theory, but look at the wealthy. They just got lucky. They were born into the right zip code, they went to the right prep school, or they just happened to start a tech company right when the market exploded.
We use luck as a shield. Because if the game is fundamentally rigged by chance, then we are absolved of the responsibility to change our own lives. It's
Yeah.
not our fault.
It's a very comforting excuse. And Naval's framework doesn't deny the existence of luck. I want to be clear about that. He isn't selling a naive, meritocratic fantasy where everyone starts at the exact same starting line.
Right. Reality exists.
Exactly. Luck is a massive factor. However, he completely dismantles the idea that luck is a monolithic, uncontrollable force of nature. He categorizes luck into 4 distinct progressive stages.
This part is fascinating.
It is, and understanding this progression is the first actual step toward building the wealth machine.
Let's dissect these 4 stages, because this completely reframes how an individual interacts with the universe. So the first stage is the one everyone knows, right? Blind luck.
Yeah, blind luck is pure, unadulterated randomness. It's the roll of the cosmic dice.
Like winning the lottery.
Exactly. You buy a lottery ticket and the numbers match. You're walking down the street and find a $100 bill fluttering in the wind. Or you happen to be born into a wealthy family.
Yeah.
You have absolute zero agency in this equation. It is something that happens to you without any input or effort on your part.
Right. And while it's super nice when it happens, it's completely unplannable. You cannot build a life strategy or a business model on the hope of finding money on the sidewalk.
It is a terrible foundation.
So how do we move from passive randomness to the second stage?
The second stage is where agency enters the picture. Naval calls this constant action luck.
Constant action luck.
Okay. This type of luck is generated by sheer kinetic energy. It happens when you are simply in relentless motion. You're constantly building prototypes, constantly publishing your thoughts, constantly introducing yourself to new people in different industries.
You're just busy doing stuff.
Right, you're constantly reading obscure books. By doing all of this, you are effectively increasing your surface area for serendipity. You're stirring the pot of the universe.
So when a massive opportunity finally lands in your lap, an outside observer might say, wow, you got so lucky to meet that investor at that conference. But they don't see that you attended 50 conferences, shook 1,000 hands, and built 20 failed prototypes before that moment. You didn't wait for lightning to strike. You built a massive field of lightning rods.
It's the law of large numbers applied to human endeavor.
Okay, that makes sense. But what's the third stage?
The third stage requires a shift from pure volume to extreme quality. This is excellence luck.
Excellence luck.
This form of luck manifests when you become exceptionally, undeniably proficient at a highly valuable skill. You become a recognized master of your craft.
Right.
When you achieve this level of excellence, the dynamic of luck actually reverses. You're no longer frantically running around searching for opportunities. The opportunities begin actively hunting for you.
Oh, wow. This makes perfect sense in specialized fields. Like if you are widely known as the absolute best crisis PR manager in the country, and a Fortune 500 CEO makes a catastrophic public mistake.
They aren't randomly flipping through the phone book.
Exactly. They are going to seek you out specifically, and they're going to pay a massive premium for your expertise. From the outside, landing that multi-million-dollar contract looks like luck.
But it isn't.
Right. The universe is simply routing the opportunity to the highest point of competence.
That is exactly how it functions. But the fourth stage of luck is where Naval introduces a concept that borders on philosophical magic.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's the rarest, most potent form of luck, and it's called unique personality luck.
Unique personality luck.
Yeah. In this stage, your specific idiosyncratic personality, your deeply unique way of perceiving and interacting with the world, literally becomes your luck.
What does that mean, practically?
It means people choose to fund you, to hire you, to partner with you, not necessarily because you have a flawless, standardized resume, but because there is absolutely no one else on the planet who thinks exactly the way you do.
I have to pause here, because this sounds incredible in theory, but practically, it feels like a contradiction. Luck, by its very definition in the English language, implies a lack of control.
Sure.
So how can a listener actively and intentionally engineer their own personality to become a magnet for economic luck? It sounds almost mystical, like a self-help platitude.
Yeah.
Just be yourself and the money will follow.
Right.
How does that actually work in the ruthless machinery of the free market?
It sounds mystical until you break down the cold, hard economics of supply and demand. Think about the messaging we receive from the moment we enter the workforce. We're pressured to conform.
Yeah, constantly.
We're taught to sand down our rough edges, to hide our weird, obsessive interests, and to mold ourselves into a shape that perfectly fits a corporate job description.
Put on the suit, use the corporate jargon.
Exactly. We are incentivized to become interchangeable commodities. But if you are an interchangeable commodity, your value is driven down by infinite supply. Naval is arguing the exact opposite.
Okay.
He's arguing that your absolute greatest economic advantage is your total uniqueness.
So it's about escaping competition by becoming a category of one.
Yes. If you lean aggressively into your weirdest obsessions, the specific rabbit holes you fall down on a Sunday morning, the bizarre intersections of your varied interests, you eliminate the competition.
Give me an example of that.
Let's say you're the only person on Earth who possesses a deep, obsessive understanding of both ancient Stoic philosophy and, cutting-edge machine learning algorithms.
That is a weird combo.
It is. But if you combine those two passions, you have zero competition. When an unprecedented opportunity arises that requires that exact, bizarre synthesis of knowledge, you are literally the only phone call they can make.
The luck finds you because you have constructed a micromonopoly around your own identity.
Precisely. You are no longer competing on a treadmill. You're playing a game where you are the only participant.
That is a profound shift in perspective. But to cultivate that specific type of luck, to build that micromonopoly, the source material dictates that you must arm yourself with 3 specific non-negotiable tools.
Yes.
These are the components of the wealth machine: specific knowledge, leverage, and ownership.
Let's examine the first tool, specific knowledge. This is the direct, practical application of that unique personality we just discussed. And to understand it, we really have to sharply contrast it with general knowledge.
Okay, general knowledge being...
General knowledge is what is taught in a classroom. It's a standardized curriculum designed to produce a standardized worker.
And the brutal truth of the modern economy is that if a skill can be taught in a classroom, it can be outsourced, it can be automated, or it can just be done by someone else willing to work for slightly less money.
Exactly. General knowledge makes you replaceable, which is why the market does not reward general knowledge with extreme wealth.
It rewards specific knowledge.
Right. Specific knowledge is highly specialized. It often looks like play to you, but it looks like exhausting, tedious work to everyone else.
That's a great distinction.
It's born from your genuine, innate curiosity. It's the stuff you obsessed over as a teenager before a guidance counselor told you to be realistic. And the defining characteristic of specific knowledge is that it is highly complex, often highly creative, and it simply cannot be mass taught.
The source material uses some incredibly vivid examples to illustrate this. I mean, nobody sat Steve Jobs down in a university lecture hall and provided a syllabus on how to seamlessly integrate hard computer engineering with minimalist Zen design and elegant typography.
Right, there was no textbook for that.
Nobody handed Pablo Picasso a step-by-step instruction manual on how to fracture reality and become Picasso. Nobody taught Elon Musk how to synthesize aerospace engineering, automotive manufacturing, and digital payments into a unified worldview.
Because it is impossible to teach those intersections. Those individuals built massive wealth because they relentlessly pursued their own obsessive, specific knowledge.
You just followed their weird interests.
They read voraciously, they tinkered, they failed in obscurity, and they combined disciplines in ways that a structured academic environment would actively discourage. They built intellectual monopolies.
This requires a massive behavioral shift for you, the listener, because the default human behavior when looking for a career is to ask, what's currently hot? What field is paying the most? Should I learn to code? Should I become a prompt engineer?
Right, chasing the trend.
But Naval is suggesting that by the time you ask the market what it wants and spend 4 years learning it, the market will already be saturated.
It's too late.
The better question, the much harder question, is to ask yourself, what is the one obscure, complex thing I could naturally become the best in the world at simply because I can't stop thinking about it?
It requires extreme self-awareness. But here's the catch. Even if you perfectly identify your specific knowledge, you run into a mechanical limit.
Okay, what's the limit?
You could possess the most profound, unique, specific knowledge on the planet. But if you're still manually applying it by trading your time for an hourly rate, you are still trapped on a very lucrative treadmill. Like A neurosurgeon possesses incredible specific knowledge, but she can still only operate on one brain at a time. Her income is capped by her biology.
She still has to physically be there in the operating room.
Exactly. And this introduces the second transformative tool, leverage.
Leverage is where the mathematics of wealth get incredibly exciting.
Leverage is the mechanism of detachment. It's the fulcrum that allows 1 hour of your focused effort to generate thousands or even millions of hours of value. The wealthy understand that you cannot scale your time, so you must scale the impact of your decisions.
Right.
Naval categorizes leverage into 4 distinct types, and understanding the evolution of these types is essential to understanding why wealth creation has radically changed in the 21st century.
Let's trace that evolution, because the first 2 types are what the text refers to as permission-based leverage. These are the historical, traditional forms of building a machine.
The oldest and most fundamental form of leverage is labor. Other human beings working on your behalf.
Sure.
You have 24 hours in a day, but if you hire 100 employees, you suddenly command thousands of hours of daily output. This is how the pyramids were built, and it's how the Industrial Revolution was powered.
But dealing with people is hard.
It is. Labor is a highly complex, often toxic form of leverage. Managing human beings requires immense emotional intelligence, constant negotiation, heavy administrative overhead. Most importantly, it requires permission. You have to convince people to follow you.
Right. And the second form of permission-based leverage is capital, money.
Yes, deploying capital to multiply your efforts. You use money to buy a factory, or you invest it in a portfolio of startups, or you buy real estate. Capital scales exponentially better than labor, and it doesn't complain or unionize.
That's a plus.
However, it still operates behind a gatekeeper. You need permission to acquire it. You must convince a venture capitalist to fund you, or a bank to underwrite a loan, or you must endure years of ascetic saving to accumulate it yourself.
But the internet fundamentally broke that historical reality.
Yeah.
It introduced the final 2 forms of leverage, which Naval describes as permissionless. And this concept is the absolute holy grail for the modern individual. We are talking about code and media.
Code and media are what Naval explicitly labels the unfair advantage of the newly rich. Consider the historical anomaly we are living in right now. For the first time in human history, an individual with a cheap laptop and a basic Wi-Fi connection has access to tools of production that can reach a global scale without asking a single gatekeeper for permission.
I really want to spend time on the analogy of code because it's brilliant. When you write a piece of software, even a simple application, you are essentially building an invisible, immortal robot.
I love that analogy.
You spend 100 hours up front doing the hard cognitive work to build this robot. But once it's compiled and deployed, that software works for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, indefinitely.
It's forever.
It doesn't require health insurance. It doesn't ask for equity. It doesn't get tired. It just flawlessly executes its function for thousands of users simultaneously. You put the time in once, and the machine works for you forever at practically zero marginal cost.
It is the closest thing to infinite leverage human beings have ever created. But there is a very natural hesitation here. Many people hear code and immediately tune out.
Oh, I would be one of them. If you put a screen of Python or C++ in front of me, I'm completely lost. The listener might be thinking, okay, this infinite leverage is great for Silicon Valley engineers, but I'm a teacher or a writer or a designer. Am I locked out of this?
Absolutely not. That is the exact reason Naval pairs code with media. Media is the great equalizer.
Okay, tell me more.
Writing a book, recording an audio deep dive like this one, filming a documentary, writing an insightful newsletter. These require absolutely zero programming knowledge, but they possess the exact same underlying physics of infinite permissionless leverage.
Because the cost of replication is zero.
Exactly. If you write an incredible essay that synthesizes your specific knowledge, it might take you a week of intense, agonizing effort. But hitting the publish button costs you nothing.
Right.
That essay can be read by 10 people, or it can be read by 10 million people while you were sleeping. You didn't have to pitch an editor, you didn't have to buy a printing press, you didn't need a distribution fleet. The internet provides the distribution for free.
That's amazing.
One piece of high-quality thought distributed globally is the ultimate leverage. But to capture the value of that leverage, you must transition from a passive consumer to an active creator.
Which perfectly bridges us to the final mechanical tool, the mandate of ownership. There's a specific quote from the source that we need to underline in heavy red ink. Naval states, if you want financial freedom, You have to own equity.
That sentence is the fulcrum of his entire financial philosophy.
Yeah.
We have to clearly define the dichotomy between an employee and an owner.
Right.
An employee, by definition, trades their time for a fixed, guaranteed sum. An owner, by definition, builds and holds an asset. You can cultivate the most profound specific knowledge, you can apply massive leverage through media or code, but if you do not legally own a piece of the underlying intellectual property or the business entity, you will never capture the wealth you're generating.
Because the wealth flows upwards to the equity holders.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Let's use a tangible example. Let's say you're a brilliant software engineer working at a major tech conglomerate.
Okay.
You use your specific knowledge to write a piece of code that optimizes their ad delivery, and it generates an additional $50 million in revenue for the company.
Huge win.
As an employee, you might receive a glowing performance review, maybe a handsome bonus, and like a 10% salary increase. You feel validated. But the shareholders, the people who actually own the equity of the company, they capture the remaining $49 million.
Right.
And they didn't write a single line of code. They just held the asset.
That is the brutal reality of the principal agent problem. The system is designed to reward the risk of ownership. Working harder as an employee rarely alters the fundamental trajectory of your financial life. It merely makes you a slightly more comfortable, significantly more exhausted participant on the treadmill.
Yeah.
True wealth is created by acquiring and holding equity. That might mean starting your own company, buying shares in existing companies, owning the copyright to your book, or owning the trademark to your brand. Without ownership, your leverage is just making someone else incredibly rich.
Okay, so we've assembled a very powerful mechanical framework. Find your bizarre specific knowledge, apply infinite permissionless leverage through code or media, and ensure you own the equity of the asset you are building.
Sounds simple, right?
It does, but as I visualize this, it introduces a terrifying vulnerability.
It has
Well, if I have a lever that is 1,000 miles long, I can move a mountain with the push of a finger. But if I point that 1,000-mile lever in slightly the wrong direction, I could accidentally crush my own house.
Yes.
In an era where one tweet, one video, or one line of code can instantly reach millions of people, the consequences of a bad decision are magnified exponentially.
You've identified the exact danger of modern leverage. Leverage is completely agnostic. It will amplify a brilliant idea, and it will just as efficiently amplify a catastrophic error.
Right.
This is precisely why Naval argues that in a hyper-leveraged world, judgment becomes infinitely more valuable than raw intelligence. And this transitions us from the physical tools of wealth to the mental operating system required to wield them safely.
I really want to pull apart the distinction between judgment and intelligence.
Yeah.
Because modern society constantly conflates the two. We're conditioned to revere the person with the highest IQ.
We really are.
You know, the person who can solve complex algorithms on a whiteboard in 3 minutes, or the person who memorized every historical date for an exam. We assume that raw computational brain power automatically equals success.
But raw intelligence without refined judgment is like placing a massive 1,000-horsepower Ferrari engine into a car that doesn't have a steering wheel.
Oh, that's a great image.
You are going to accelerate at a terrifying speed, but you are going to crash spectacularly into the first obstacle you encounter. High intelligence allows you to solve a problem quickly. Judgment dictates whether the problem is actually worth solving in the first place.
And in a world dominated by search engines and AI, intelligence is becoming a cheap commodity.
Exactly.
You don't need to memorize facts anymore. The internet remembers everything for you. Artificial intelligence can synthesize data, write basic code, draft legal documents. The premium is no longer on executing tasks quickly. The premium is on deciding which tasks to execute.
How does the text define judgment in this context? Judgment is the rare ability to perceive the consequences of your actions accurately.
Seeing reality.
Yes. It's about stripping away your own biases, your wishful thinking, and seeing reality exactly as it is, not as you want it to be. In a highly leveraged position, you do not need to make 100 good decisions every single day. The requirement for constant frantic activity drops to 0.
You just need a few good ones.
One single flawless decision, choosing the right co-founder, identifying the correct market trend right before it peaks, or deciding to abandon a failing project, that one decision can completely outperform a decade of relentless, intelligent hard work applied in the wrong direction.
But judgment feels abstract. If I'm listening to this and I realize my judgment isn't great, how do I actually improve it? Like you can practice a piano scale to get better at piano. How do you practice judgment?
Naval offers a very counterintuitive prescription for this. To improve your judgment, you have to fundamentally change your relationship with information and reaction. First, you must carve out significant amounts of unstructured time simply to think.
Just to think.
Yes. We've glorified the idea of being busy, but constant busyness destroys the space required for deep reflection. Second, you must radically detach your ego from your intellect.
That's a hard one.
Ego is the ultimate enemy of judgment because ego fundamentally refuses to acknowledge reality if reality makes it feel inferior. If your identity is tied to a specific business idea and the market clearly rejects it, a person with high ego will burn all their capital trying to force it to work.
They can't admit they're wrong.
Right. But a person with high judgment will ruthlessly abandon the idea and pivot.
This ties into a severe critique of how we consume information today. If we're brutally honest, the vast majority of people do not actively think, they merely react. We exist in a constant low-level state of algorithmic manipulation.
We live in a reaction economy.
Exactly.
Right.
The news cycle dictates what we should be outraged about on a Tuesday. The social media algorithm curates a feed that tells us what political or cultural opinions are safe and socially rewarded. Our immediate friend group enforces a consensus view of the world.
It's an echo chamber.
We are essentially walking around downloading other people's corrupted software into our brains, installing it, and running it without ever inspecting the source code.
Which is the exact antithesis of good judgment. To cultivate the kind of judgment that guides infinite leverage, Naval advocates for the relentless application of first principles thinking.
Let's break that down.
It's a concept borrowed from physics. It requires you to stop relying on analogies, to stop asking what other people are doing, and to strip a problem down to its most fundamental, undeniable, atomic truths. You reason upwards from there.
Let's give the listener a practical example of this. Let's say you want to start a media company, and the conventional wisdom of the analogy says you must spend thousands of dollars on a studio, hire a production crew, and run ads to get subscribers, because that's how the big networks do it.
Right, that's the standard playbook.
But first principles thinking forces you to ask, why? What is absolutely true? Well, the truth is, people want valuable information. The truth is, a smartphone has a 4K camera. The truth is, the internet allows free distribution. Therefore, the first principle dictates you only need a phone and a profound insight to start. You discard all that bloated conventional wisdom.
Exactly. First principles thinking allows you to see the matrix. Extraordinary outsized results never come from ordinary consensus thinking. If your mental models are exactly the same as the crowd, your financial outcomes will be exactly the same as the crowd.
And as we established with the 40-year plan, the crowd is stuck on the treadmill.
Independent thinking is inherently lonely, it invites criticism, but it's the absolute prerequisite for identifying asymmetrical opportunities. And an essential component of that independent thinking is recognizing the time horizon you're operating on. This brings us to a massive pillar of Naval's mental operating system, playing long-term games.
This might be the hardest advice in the entire text to actually execute, because every single mechanism in modern society is weaponized to optimize for the immediate dopamine hit.
It's a profound vulnerability in human psychology. We are evolutionarily wired to prioritize immediate survival over long-term planning. Today, that translates into optimizing for the quick buck, the immediate promotion, the viral social media post, the overnight crypto pump.
We want it now.
We're desperate for the shortcut. But Naval observes that truly successful people, the ones who build unshakable generational wealth, operate on a time horizon of decades. They deeply understand the mathematics of compounding.
When most of us hear the word compounding, our brains immediately go to a 401k or a high-yield savings account. It's a strictly financial concept. But Naval expands the physics of compounding to encompass literally every facet of human interaction, doesn't he?
He does, and this is where the philosophy becomes incredibly elegant. Compounding applies to everything. Deep relationships compound over decades. Trust compounds. Highly specialized skills compound. Your reputation in an industry compounds. When you operate with a long-term mindset, every interaction is a deposit into a compounding account.
But the shadow side of this is how easily compounding is destroyed. If you constantly chase the shiny new shortcut, if you jump from one grifty get-rich-quick scheme to another, or if you burn a business partner to extract a tiny bit of extra margin on a single deal, you're doing more than just being unethical.
You're ruining the math.
You are mathematically resetting the compounding clock back to absolute zero. You're destroying the only mechanism that can actually create massive, effortless momentum in your life.
I want to address the friction here, though, because the listener is living in the real world. Society constantly glorifies a highly toxic version of hustle culture.
Hmm.
You open your phone and you are bombarded with advertisements for 30-day masterclasses that promise to make you a millionaire, or influencers flashing rented supercars telling you that you are falling behind.
That's relentless.
The pressure to succeed instantly, to prove your worth immediately, is suffocating. How does a normal person realistically resist the gravitational pull of the shortcut?
It's a vital question. Naval's framework answers it by shifting the focus from the outcome to the environment. He provides an incredibly grounding heuristic. You should only play long-term games with long-term people.
That's a great filter.
It completely filters your decision-making. Before you start a project, before you find a contract, before you enter a partnership, you have to look at the person across the table and ask yourself, is this someone I would gladly, enthusiastically work with again in 10, 20, or 30 years?
And if the honest answer is no, then why are you wasting even a single day working with them right now? When you commit to the long-term game, certain virtues that sound quaint actually become highly pragmatic business strategies.
Like what?
You choose radical honesty not just for moral reasons, but because lies and deceptions require too much cognitive overhead to maintain over a 30-year timeline.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
You choose extreme patience. You choose consistency. The short-term world is incredibly loud, incredibly chaotic, and full of grifters, but time ruthlessly purges the system. Time eventually rewards the individuals who stay in the game and let their reputation do the heavy lifting.
Okay, let's take a breath and survey what we've built here. We have mapped out an incredibly robust, logical architecture for success. We know we have to step off the income treadmill.
Right.
We know we need to cultivate our bizarre specific knowledge, weaponize it with infinite permissionless leverage like code or media, capture the value by owning equity, guide the whole machine with ruthless first principles judgment, and let it compound over decades. If you execute on this exact formula, the math dictates you're going to build immense life-changing wealth. You've built the machine.
The mechanics are sound. It works.
But this is where the Almanack of Naval Ravikant executes a massive, almost jarring pivot that elevates it above every other business book on the shelf.
Yeah, it takes a sharp turn here.
Right as you grasp the blueprint for absolute financial victory, the subject matter abruptly changes. A massive portion of the source material isn't about money or leverage or business at all, because Naval introduces a terrifying, deeply philosophical question. What is the absolute point of applying perfect judgment and infinite leverage to build a generational empire if you wake up every morning feeling utterly miserable?
This is the moment Naval transitions from a brilliant Silicon Valley strategist into a modern philosopher. Because this isn't a hypothetical question. We all know the archetype.
We definitely do.
We have all seen people who have definitively won the financial game, who have more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes, yet they are deeply anxious, highly paranoid, profoundly insecure, and medicated just to survive their own minds. They won the war for wealth, but they lost the war for peace.
Which brings us to the most critical phase of our deep dive, the happiness equation. Because if the machine you build produces wealth but destroys your peace, the machine is defective.
Naval argues that our fundamental societal understanding of what happiness actually is and how it is acquired is entirely broken. We treat happiness as if it were a physical destination.
Right, a place to get to.
We treat it like a hidden treasure map where X marks the spot, and if we just follow the directions, we'll eventually find it.
It's the "I'll be happy when" fallacy. It is the mantra of the modern world. I am miserable right now, but I will finally be happy when I hit a six-figure salary. I'll be happy when I finally buy the house with the backyard, when I lose the 15 pounds, when my company goes public. We're constantly deferring our joy to a hypothetical future state that relies entirely on external validation.
But Naval points out the brutal biological reality of the hedonic treadmill. Human psychology is designed for survival, not for sustained bliss.
Subtly.
The absolute millisecond you achieve the goal, the day you close on the house, or the day the promotion clears your bank account, you might feel a brief spike of euphoria, but within weeks, your psychological baseline resets. The new house just becomes where you live.
The promotion just becomes your job.
Exactly. The goalpost is immediately moved further down the field because human desire, by its very evolutionary nature, never, ever ends.
There is a specific definition of desire in the text that honestly stopped me in my tracks. It is one of the most profound things I've ever read. Naval states, desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want.
Let's really pull that apart. A contract you make with yourself to be unhappy. Think about the mechanics of wanting something.
Okay.
Every single time you deeply, intensely desire something you do not currently possess, you are actively, voluntarily choosing to exist in a state of dissatisfaction. You are essentially telling your own brain, I refuse to be at peace, I refuse to be content, until this specific external condition is met.
Wow.
Now multiply that. If you have 20 intense, burning desires operating in your mind at any given moment, a better car, a fitter body, a more attentive partner, a higher status in your peer group, you're holding 20 simultaneous binding contracts of unhappiness.
It is cognitively exhausting just visualizing it. It's a self-imposed prison.
It is the root of modern suffering. This is why Naval insists aggressively that happiness is not something you passively find. Happiness is a skill. It's a highly deliberate practice.
Like going to the gym.
Exactly. And the absolute core of that practice is not the accumulation of more things to satisfy your desires, but the active, intentional reduction of unnecessary desires. If you can learn to selectively cancel those contracts of unhappiness, happiness naturally rushes in to fill the empty space left behind. Happiness is simply the state of being when nothing is missing.
But the mandate to reduce desire requires a level of mental mastery that is arguably much harder to achieve than mastering the stock market, because it requires fighting our own biology.
It does, because the human mind, in its natural untrained state, is essentially a hyper-vigilant threat detection engine. It evolved to keep us alive on the savannah by constantly scanning for danger. It is not designed to make us happy. It constantly fabricates fake problems to solve.
I love the analogy of the mind as software here. The untrained mind is like a poorly coded application that is constantly running severe error messages in the background, just draining your battery to zero.
That is exactly what it feels like.
You could be sitting in a perfectly climate-controlled room, financially secure, physically healthy, totally safe from predators, but your mind won't let you rest. The background software is vividly replaying an embarrassing comment you made at a dinner party 5 years ago.
Or worrying about something 10 years from now.
Right. Or it's aggressively hallucinating a future financial disaster that has a 0.0001% chance of actually happening. Or it's obsessively comparing your mundane, behind-the-scenes reality with the highly curated, impossibly perfect highlight reel of a stranger on social media.
That background software is a parasite. It drains your kinetic energy and absolutely destroys your biological peace. And achieving a peaceful mind is not just some esoteric spiritual luxury for monks. It's highly, highly practical for wealth creation.
Yes.
A chaotic, anxious mind hallucinates threats and makes reactive emotional decisions. A peaceful mind sees reality with crystalline clarity. It makes fewer superior decisions. And as we established when we discussed leverage, superior judgment is the ultimate driver of compounding wealth.
And nothing introduces a more virulent virus into that mental software than playing status games. The text draws a very sharp, very aggressive distinction between wealth games and status games. And this is where a lot of highly successful people completely ruin their own lives.
This is a critical psychological distinction for you to internalize. We spent the first half of this deep dive exploring how wealth is created by providing value. Wealth is fundamentally a positive-sum game.
Positive sum.
If I use my specific knowledge to build a house, and you use your specific knowledge to build a house, we now both have houses. My creation of wealth did not diminish your ability to create wealth. The pie gets larger for everyone.
But status is a completely different animal. Status is evolutionary combat.
Status is a rigid zero-sum game. Status depends entirely on your position in a hierarchy relative to other human beings. For you to move up to the number 1 slot, someone else must be forcibly pushed down to the number 2 slot. It is entirely based on comparison and dominance.
It's the endless, exhausting race of modern society. Who has the most square footage in their home? Who has the luxury SUV? Who has the verified checkmark and the most followers? Who gets invited to the exclusive gala?
And because status relies entirely on the subjective perception of other people, it creates a state of constant, unyielding anxiety. You can never permanently step off the treadmill of status because the moment you stop running, someone younger, hungrier, or flashier is coming up right behind you to claim your spot.
You're just constantly looking over your shoulder.
You are renting your self-worth from the opinions of strangers. Naval's advice here is incredibly blunt and incredibly liberating. He says you can become immensely rich quietly. True wealth does not require an audience. But status demands constant noise, constant broadcasting, and constant defense of your territory.
The ultimate takeaway for you listening right now is a profound choice. Choose wealth. Actively, aggressively ignore status. If you can train your ego to stop caring about where you rank in the neighborhood hierarchy, you will sleep deeply.
You really will?
You will actually have the capacity to enjoy the freedom your wealth machine provides, instead of using your hard-earned leverage to buy expensive, stressful props for a status game that is mathematically impossible to win.
But recognizing the trap of the status game and recognizing the contracts of desire is only half the battle.
Right. Knowing it isn't enough.
Exactly. To actually implement this philosophy, to permanently quiet the mind's error messages, to actively ignore the intoxicating pull of social status, to continually sharpen your specific knowledge and judgment, you cannot rely on sheer willpower. Willpower depletes by noon. You need systems.
Which brings us to the final major section of our analysis: daily systems. Naval prescribes a very specific set of daily habits that serve as the maintenance protocol for this entire philosophy. And the first habit, the foundational system that feeds everything else, is an absolute superpower: reading.
Naval is a legendary, almost obsessive reader. He doesn't view reading as a leisurely hobby. He views it as the ultimate cheat code for human existence.
A cheat code.
Yes. When you really think about the mechanics of what a book actually is, it's mind-bending. A brilliant, highly observant human being spends 10, 20, or 30 years of their life stumbling through the dark. They make painful, expensive mistakes. They study a complex field. They suffer, they experiment, and eventually they distill a profound core truth. Then they spend a year agonizing over how to compress those decades of hard-won, bloody wisdom into a few hundred pages of text.
And you, the reader, can walk into a store, hand over $20, and download those 30 years of wisdom into your own brain over a single weekend. The freeze from the text is perfect. Books compress decades into days.
I love that.
It is literally a time machine. You are granted the privilege of borrowing humanity's most expensive mistakes without ever having to pay the terrible price they paid to learn them.
Exactly. But Naval's approach to reading is highly specific. He emphasizes the necessity of reading widely and reading foundational texts. Do not just read the latest trendy airport business book that could have been a blog post.
Right.
Read the original source code of human thought. Read ancient philosophy to understand the unchanging mechanics of human nature and ego. Read evolutionary psychology to understand why you desire what you desire. Read microeconomics, read physics, read history. The broader and deeper your foundation of knowledge, the more lethal your judgment becomes, because you can draw intuitive connections across multiple, seemingly unrelated disciplines that a narrow, hyper-specialized expert would never even see.
And here's a crucial point on the mechanics of reading that the source material touches on. You have to drop the vanity of finishing everything you start. If a book isn't grabbing you, if the ideas aren't resonating, put it down immediately. Treat books as a massive buffet of ideas, not a homework assignment you have to slog through for status.
Definitely.
Now, reading is inherently a solitary activity, which perfectly transitions into Naval's next highly controversial daily system: the absolute necessity of learning to be alone. Society has developed a profound, almost pathological terror of silence.
We have completely eradicated empty space from the human experience. We constantly, desperately need to fill the void. The moment we wake up, we reach for the glowing rectangle to check our notifications. We put on a show. The second we get into the car, we have music playing through wireless earbuds while we work. We have the television blaring in the background while we eat dinner.
Just this constant noise.
We are absolutely terrified of being left alone with the unedited stream of our own thoughts.
Okay, I have to call out the massive glaring elephant in the room right now. We are literally hosting a long-form audio show.
Yes, we are.
The person listening to this right now has headphones on, or they're driving down the highway, actively pumping our voices and our thoughts into their brain. Isn't there a massive, undeniable hypocrisy in us telling you, the listener, to turn off the noise and seek deep solitude while you are actively consuming our media?
It's a fair question.
How does a modern person actually practice solitude without just feeling incredibly bored, intensely anxious, and frankly, like they are wasting valuable productive time?
It's a brilliant paradox, but it's a necessary bridge in the learning process. You consume deep dives, books, and lectures to gather the raw cognitive materials. You are collecting the puzzle pieces, but the actual synthesis, the magical moment where Naval's abstract philosophy transforms from an interesting intellectual concept into your specific weaponized knowledge, only happens in the absolute silence after the audio ends.
Ah, I see.
Naval argues convincingly that profound clarity only grows in a vacuum. All of life's truly massive breakthroughs, your most brilliant ideas for applying leverage, your most brutally honest assessments of your own toxic desires, they only happen when nobody else is around to influence you. Yes, when you first turn off the noise and sit in an empty room, you will experience the intense friction of extreme boredom. Your brain will scream for a dopamine hit.
It is literal physiological withdrawal.
It is exactly like chemical withdrawal. But if you have the discipline to sit still and push through that initial wall of friction, the boredom eventually breaks, and you reach a state of profound, undisturbed clarity. Naval presents a hauntingly beautiful concept here. Eventually, you become the person you spend the most time with.
Let that sink in.
If you never ever spend time alone with yourself, if you are constantly drowning your own inner voice with the opinions of the crowd, you will never truly know who you are. You will never discover what your specific knowledge actually is or what you genuinely desire outside of societal programming.
That is a heavy, sobering realization, but it's incredibly liberating. You have to meet yourself before you can leverage yourself. Now, all of this intense mental and philosophical work requires a resilient physical vessel. The next system is arguably the foundation of the entire structure, because without it, the whole machine instantly collapses. Health must come first.
It is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite. You can engineer infinite leverage, you can accumulate billions of dollars in equity, and you can possess flawless judgment, but the moment you lose your physical health, every single bit of it becomes entirely worthless. There's a profound proverb that Naval frequently references. A healthy man wants 1,000 things. A sick man only wants one thing.
That hits hard. Money cannot buy metabolic energy. It cannot buy the biological peace of a truly restorative night of sleep. It cannot repair a nervous system that has been shredded by decades of chronic stress and neglect. Naval stresses that your physical body is the foundational machine that builds the wealth machine.
Which dictates that protecting your biology must be your absolute highest daily priority. You must exercise daily, not for vanity or status, but to flush the cortisol from your system.
Right, for your brain.
You must fiercely protect deep, restorative sleep, rather than sacrificing it to send a few extra late-night emails that could wait until morning. You must treat your physical body with the exact same long-term reverence and judgment that you would apply to managing a billion-dollar investment portfolio.
And that brings us to the final daily system, the invisible thread that sews this entire philosophical tapestry together. Patience.
We live in an instantaneous, highly reactive world. We demand instant food delivery, instant streaming entertainment, instant validation through likes, and tragically, we expect instant success. We have completely lost our cultural tolerance for the slow, unglamorous build.
But the text is uncompromising on this truth. Absolutely nothing of profound value is instant. Generational wealth, unshakable inner peace, deep relationships, profound wisdom, none of these things can be downloaded, microwaved, or hacked. They all rely entirely on the invisible, agonizingly slow magic of compounding.
You have to plant the seed today, water it meticulously, and then you have to step back and trust the fundamental physics of the process. You cannot pull upward on the sapling to force it to grow faster. You will only rip out the roots.
Yeah.
The great tragedy of human ambition, as Naval points out, is that the vast majority of people quit the process just millimeters before the massive exponential compounding curve finally kicks in. They put in 3 years of grueling work, they don't see the explosive viral results they expected, so they abandon the project in frustration and start from zero on something new. They continually reset the compounding clock. The ultimate system is simply having the patience to not quit right before the miracle happens.
So as we pull back and look at this massive architecture we've explored today, as you reach the core of Naval Ravikant's philosophy, you realize something that completely flips the script of modern ambition. The ultimate goal of all these complex mechanics, identifying your obscure specific knowledge, deploying massive permissionless leverage through code and media, securing equity, cultivating flawless judgment, enduring the withdrawal of solitude, and practicing extreme patience. The goal of all of this was never actually to become a billionaire.
No, it wasn't. The money is just a byproduct.
The goal was never to buy a massive yacht to impress strangers, or to attain global fame, or to sit at the top of a toxic status hierarchy. The absolute ultimate goal is simply freedom.
It is freedom in its purest forms. It's freedom over your time, so you wake up precisely when your body is rested and not a moment before. It's freedom over your mind, so you're no longer tortured by 1,000 burning desires and the exhausting anxiety of status games. It's freedom over your choices, so you only dedicate your life's energy to problems that endlessly fascinate you, alongside people you deeply respect. Money is not the finish line. Money simply lubricates the friction of human existence so that true freedom becomes easier to protect and maintain.
Wealth and happiness are not mutually exclusive opposites. We've been sold a false dichotomy that you have to choose between being a ruthless, miserable, wealthy tycoon or a happy, impoverished monk. Naval proves that they can and should reinforce each other. A peaceful, quiet mind actually makes vastly superior, highly lucrative business decisions. An immense automated wealth provides the time and space required to practice that peace. When you finally combine long-term thinking, infinite leverage, and the continuous refinement of your own mind, the machine runs beautifully.
It represents a completely different, highly evolved way of moving through the world. It is the transition from a life of reaction to a life of intention.
It truly is. So as we finally wrap up this expansive deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final synthesizing thought to mull over today as you look at your own life. Naval tells us that the absolute highest, most lucrative form of luck in the universe is your unique personality, being so undeniably, authentically yourself that rare opportunities actively hunt you down. And he also tells us that you eventually become the person you spend the most time with in absolute, unbroken solitude.
Right.
So it raises a truly fascinating, deeply provocative question. In a modern economy that is completely obsessed with networking, with constantly broadcasting our every thought to the masses, and with being hyper-connected and validated 24 hours a day, could it be that the absolute only way to truly become lucky and economically irreplaceable is by first mastering the lost, terrifying art of being entirely alone with yourself?
It is a question that completely subverts everything society teaches us about how to succeed today.
It really does. So as you go about the rest of your day, I hope you take a long, hard look at the treadmill you might currently be running on. We wish you a great day, and we highly encourage you to figure out how to step off and start building your machine.